All right, welcome. Thank you so much for being at my channeling today. For those of you who don't know me, I am a channel, both trance channel and clear conduit. That means I put myself into a trance or I choose to stay awake and receive the same information. I've been doing world predictions for a very long time, and I decided to come on YouTube to expand my presence and to be able to kind of assist and serve a little bit more, help, give you a heads up on some of the things I'm seeing. So thank you for being here. Let's see. Chat isn't working. That's a lot of fun. There it is. No, it is working. It's just YouTube was so glitchy today. Okay. Let's do a few brief, quick announcements. You're always asking for any sort of discounts that'll help you during these times. So we provided a new private reading discount. And you can get that 21% discount code as any Patreon tier member. So we've got that linked up for you below. And some people just ask for a little mini reading where I can pull some cards. There's some people ask for deeper readings. The only exception to that 10-minute reading is mediumship. We don't like to do that during that short amount of time. I only do mediumship when the being comes to me. I don't like to call them and just demand that they come. So I don't put it on my website. It's like, if they're there, they're there. And if they're not, they're not. So we don't have readings for that. We just see if they show up during your regular sessions. But we have this 10-minute private reading available where you can come in and ask an important question. And if you're like I'm a lightning round reader. I don't know if you've noticed that about me, but when I channel, it's super fast and super clear. So things come in, boom, 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 boom. So if you're clear and you don't need a lot of clarity and explanation and elaboration, you can come in with a whole list and you'd be surprised how much you can get accomplished in 10 minutes. I read like I talk, quick. All right. How are you guys doing? This equinox is unusual. There's particularly, I'm out here in Michigan and I notice a strong energy coming through in Chicago, sort of like this phenomenon of flipping through time very quickly and then reversing it. I know. I'll explain that in a minute of what I mean when I say that, practically speaking, because it's not just these little energy upgrades to your chakra systems, to your psychological constructs, and to your bodies are not just available for people who are on the spiritual track or yogis or people. It's everyone is experiencing these little ascension updates. So my main is called the Galactic Council of Nine. For those of you who are just seeing me for the first time, they are a council who has been talking to me since age 5. And they are very accurate with specific things like what's going on in our world, from different changes that we're having in our third density constructs like politics, religion, as well as what's shifting in our financial structures, what's shifting in our economics, what is shifting in our environmental factors. They're really good at predicting certain environmental things that are happening in natural shifts in earth, like earthquakes, droughts, hurricanes, etc. And the council's really good at talking about how ascension as a collective is affecting individual people, and how that affects us in our state of mind, how that affects us in our bodies. For those of you who are brand new to the spiritual path, what we mean by ascension, when the council says that, that means just your unique way of remembering the truth of who you are, for whatever that looks like to you. Some people choose to do that in religion. Some people choose to do that in yoga. Some people choose to awaken in New Age constructs. This is a New Age construct. So there's a lot going on. And the theme of this month, for those of you asking in chat right now, is unique. I'm going to pull some cards on it, as well as pulling in the council. So we have a karmic theme and a dharmic theme. For those of you who don't know, when you do oracle card readings, it's different. I don't do tarot. It's very rare that you'll see me. There's only one tarot card deck that I even like, and nobody knows it. So I like oracle when it comes to picking up on these themes to kind of corroborate what the council's already telling me. So Do you remember just a few moments ago when they came through and said you are flipping through time very quickly and then slowly reversing it to look at what you need to look at, shift, change, and grow through? So that's called time flip or time flipping. That is the galactic term for that. Some people think it's changing time or timelines. Some people call it like timeline shifting, moving through timelines. It's the same terminology, same thing, different terminology. That is the theme, is how are you discovering that the past is still upon you? How are you discovering how to actually shift it in the now? Because as the council always says, the past is a ghost and you can't, kill what's already gone, what's already lost. You can't slay a ghost. But right now, there's something unique. And this phenomenon showed up around the Chicago area in the physicality of Earth just as the equinox was starting yesterday, and people have out their cameras. Did you guys see that? And that was really unique. I believe it was like ABC7 that talked about this kind of, they called it like a semi-actual phenomenon. What a weird word, semi-actual phenomenon. And they actually saw that in their skies. So it's like you are experiencing the future through healing the past, and you can only tap into and heal the past in your current moment. And you have to be able to relax enough to be able to do that. Or we'll cover that last bit in a moment because that's an important bit, and I just kind of threw it at you like it's, an aside. So, yes, to answer your question, one of you in chat is saying, "Are you releasing old habits?" And the council is saying, "Yes, but in a different way because you didn't. The way that you were releasing old habits is not exactly, the way that it is. Okay, right now, it's different now." Okay, so oracle card readings, when you pull them and they are right side up like this, and this is your theme, purification, that is the dharma of it. That means it's going to feel like mastery. It's going to feel good. It's going to feel, not all mastery feels good when you get a karmic card, okay? If it's upside down, that means it would be karmic, and we would talk about what we call karmic effect, what you're pulling over from your past lifetimes, what you haven't learned that you're continuing to pull over into now. But we got this one as a dharmic card to corroborate the theme with you. I don't pull them in advance because I want you to see how these things are coming up along with what we're channeling through presently. So purification, this wave of energy the council is channeling, is purification of what is no longer serving. Now, it doesn't mean like just omitting people, letting people go, making people invalid. That was sort of a theme that people misunderstood a couple years ago, where everybody was like taking out the trash and you let go of people who you were still learning from. You're purifying the way you think about the same people. You're purifying your thoughts, belief systems, and emotions about your family versus the whole boundaries theme that happened in 2020, 2021, and 2022. In September of 2023, you are changing, you are purifying your ineffective thought streams and belief systems, your valuation systems. What have you created meaning towards that still continues your suffering? The council beckons you to ask. This is rhetorical for you to work through later. What are you pulling through that beckons your attention? What belief systems do you have about people around you right now? It's very personal this month. And you can choose meaning and valuation systems that build those relationships, or you could choose meaning and valuation systems that make them virtually intolerable to you. Okay? So purify your thought streams, your meaning and valuation systems. What have you made significant about how you think towards people? Your thoughts towards people, your judgments in those thoughts towards people, your feelings about those people. So this is real personal, like your relationships, your kids, your partners, your boss, people you work with, your team at work, everything. All right. What are you bringing through that needs purification? Because we're creating so many painful meanings and valuation systems. So we'll hold that card out a little bit over here. Last night, I tapped into a movie, and it's rather dismal, and I'm not suggesting that you tap into it as well because it's a blah movie with very little action. But it is one of the truest things that the council could remind me of how we're experiencing our past lives both when we leave this world and enter into the spirit world, and how we look at our past circumstances and karma right now. You hear me on that one? They're going to repeat it, right? We'll get to the predictions later. We're starting out with the fall equinox update, guys. And then you can ask me your questions, and we'll go into some readings on the different areas where you live and make sure you're safe, okay? So the council guided me to look at a very old sci-fi movie last night called The Discovery. Now, you got to be grounded and whole in your psychological state in order to watch this. There's straight off the bat suicide. A guy pulls a gun on himself and shoots himself in the brains right out in front of you. Very first scene of the movie. So you have to be strong to see this movie. But the theme of it is, for those of you, this is a spoiler alert. A wonderful cast, by the way. Robert Redford, yes, absolutely. And the other guy too that played Will. Do you remember him? You know, the neurologist who was an atheist and who didn't believe in anything in the afterlife. And his father was this scientist who'd worked his whole life to figure out what happens when we die, and he finally was able to evidence it. And he discovered this way to record. You know, they were kind of like, do you remember the old movie Flatliners? Do you remember that, where they were kind of flatlining themselves and then using the paddles to reinvigorate? And, and during the time they were flatlined, they would like have experiences and come back and tell you about it. And it was like kind of different in that, in terms of the theme of like going back and forth and walking between worlds. In this movie, it's more about rediscovering your different parallel time potentials. There are what we call exit points that we need to address this month. The Discovery, that movie, addressed the potential of exit points, and that the past actually doesn't exist, and that you can tap back into a potential exit point of your past right now, change it, live longer, be happier, shift karma, tap into your dharma. Your dharma is your purpose, your soul contracts, the whole reason why you're here in your spiritual mastery. Everything is spiritual, by the way. When I say spiritual mastery, the council means your happiness, your functionality. You know, you're here to be a galactic human as a starseed, to make that practical in ways that even a kindergartner or a person who doesn't know what you're talking about can understand. Right? So you're flipping through moments. And when we mean exit point, we don't mean points of potential death. We also mean points of potential ego death. We mean points of potential death to a path that no longer serves you, like contracts, death of that contract. So an exit point could mean, I don't need that particular means of learning, that modality, that suffering-ridden modality for learning. I don't need that anymore, right? That's incredible. So it's like we're flipping into it like that, but the problem is we're not really aware of it. So we're like, why are we having all this deja vu? That most people are coming to me, and I'm feeling this out, where people are saying, why does that person remind me of my ex? Or that person that I just met looks like somebody that I know, but I can't feel into it. Or it feels like I've loved that person before, but I haven't in this lifetime, and things that aren't making sense, feeling like we've known people in various lifetimes before, or that we've learned certain lessons from them, right? Whether they be painful lessons or loving lessons, whatever they are, it doesn't matter. It's like we're flipping back into potential exit points of soul contracts that no longer serve, and purifying them, exit points of the way that we speak to each other, like the modality and the techniques for how we learn in relationships that's not working anymore. And we're going back into it and then saying, okay, the way that I spoke to that person isn't working, and isn't like, it's actually hurting them and hurting me and hurting our potential. So I'm not going to speak to them in that way anymore. That's a purification of a soul contract. The meaning and valuation system that you created with that person in that relationship. and your modality for communication is shifting. So then your whole relationship shifts in that moment. And you could feel it. You could feel them kind of relaxing into it. You could feel you kind of relaxing into it and going, okay, I still don't like, and I would prefer a different way, but I'm relaxing into being with that person, even though I don't like the way it feels, or I don't like the way it looks, or it's not the way I typically did things in the past. And what the council has to say about that is, do you want to purify the past? Do you want to recognize, expand, and grow? Or do you only want to hold on to things your way? So people are shifting their ways right now. And it doesn't matter if it's a way that feels right, that feels wrong. It's like everyone's shifting their way in order to formulate a bridge of consciousness, a middle ground, so that we stop looking at each other in relationship constructs as right or wrong or good or bad, or, you know, I've never done marriage this way. I've never done work this way. I've never done love this way. I've never done parenting this way. All of these ways, as opposed to saying, well, I've never done it this way, it might be good to purify your old thoughts that you think are true about how you used to do it. Purify that, because something's shifting now that's forcing you into doing it different, or you lose that. You lose that person, you lose that job, your child doesn't want to talk to you. All those sort of things can happen. You lose that whole relationships, whether they be romantic or job or children or whatever they are a big theme this month. And you don't want to lose the construct. You could push each other away if you refuse to purify and stop bringing in these old exit points into your new situation. So, a lot of people are asking really good questions in chat right now. One of them was, how do you do that? How do you purify that unhelpful, unserving construct? And you're going to expect the council to come out and tell you to spin around your head, sing kumbaya backwards, and then burn sage at the north, south, east, and west, and lift up your hands and scream to your ancestors, and then, turn upside down again and spin on your ass and then meditate for 2 hours. No, these simple, we're looking for so many modalities and techniques all the time, versus just saying, I recognize, I am aware that the way I am operating with this person is not serving them or me. Just that statement, I am aware that this construct, this way of doing, thinking, speaking, acting, being in this construct of relationship isn't working. Right? It isn't working. Just that simple, say that to yourself. I am aware that this, and you don't even have to be aware of what the this is. You just know when you're around someone and they're not reacting to you appropriately, or they're kind of being mean, or you're being mean, or something's off in the energy pattern. Even if you don't know what it is, can you stop and put your hand on your heart? Take a really deep yoga breath through your nose. Exhale through your mouth. Put your hands out front and feel that dense energy between you and them. You can literally feel it in your hands in the air, the council's saying. So it's just that feeling of, whoa, wait, stop, drop what isn't serving, and breathe. Stop, drop, roll into the awareness and breathe. So it's stop, drop, and roll is your modality. Stop. Stop talking. Stop feeling badly. Stop. Drop your thought process that isn't serving. Even if you don't know what it is, you just know something feels off. So, okay, I am aware that I need to drop that energy pattern. Just say that I am aware that this energy isn't working. Can you say that with me? I am aware that this energy isn't serving, isn't working. Anything like that will help, right? And then roll into it. Don't worry about like knowing what needs to be energized or dropped. Just the awareness that you just know that something doesn't feel good, something feels off, something isn't working, and just putting that out there and saying, okay, I'm going to roll into a more helpful process via breath. Breath, 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 in through the nose, out through the mouth. I flow into the I am. I flow into the I am. I've given you so many things on this. Do you remember the Tesla toning? That's something where I would listen to the unique 936-369 patterns. that go into opening up the various kingdoms of God and the chakra systems within you. It's similar to that without all the tones. Just stop, become aware, and say, I am aware that this isn't working. I drop these unserving patterns, these painful patterns, and I surrender to the flow of the I am. And, people misunderstand the I am and say, well, that's no longer relevant. Well, it is no longer relevant when you misunderstand it. So you can say, I surrender to the flow of cosmic creator, anything that you can put into that isn't dualized. Don't say higher self, because if you say higher self, then there's a lower self. And then we go into all these divisions. And dimensionality is born of dementia. The council always tells us that. So in our sacred language that we're using for these modalities is going to be really helpful. Okay. Okay, we've been at that one long enough. We got the theme for the equinox, and you understand what that looks like currently, hopefully, of going back into old patterns, and we're going back into old thought patterns and just dropping the meaning evaluation systems because they're not serving and it's painful. And then from there, it's like we get a redo, just like in that movie, The Discovery, that the council reminded me of yesterday. There's people were going back into portions of their memory, and the atheist neurologist thought, well, it's just memory. But then he went back and researched and talked to the people in the dead guy's memory, and it wasn't. And she was like, no, that didn't happen that way. He never came around. He never did that differently and healed his family or was there for his father's death. Or he never did that. Well, that's because when we go into the afterlife, we actually get a moment in parallel time. It's not a rebirth. One of the first things we do is go through our many parallel experiences, and we call that the past or memory because we don't understand it. And then we redo it. So we're doing that, except we're doing that during life. We're doing that while living. And we're doing that in a very active way, according to what the council is explaining today in this channeling. Okay. Do you understand what they're saying? Are you feeling the flip back? It's like, oh, I'm doing it again. I recognize that thought pattern. I just said that again, and that hurts that person, or they just said that and that hurts me. This is our pattern. Stop. Shift it in that moment with the technique given. Just scroll back later. I don't want to repeat it again, newcomers. But take a deep breath and do something new. Do something different. I don't know how many times the council is going to need to repeat this one, but that whole concept of doing the same thing and expecting different results is insanity. We're doing the same thing and expecting different results. Of course, how we love people in the past isn't going to work for a new relationship. You're not in that relationship. Of course, being in a job in the same way and being in that same persona in the new job isn't going to work because it isn't that job with that boss in that circumstances. So when you're here to grow, you're here to expand. That's what ascension is, to grow and expand, correct? So it's going to be really important to understand that continuing in the same way, the same personality constructs with the same triggers, the same coping mechanisms for those triggers, nothing's going to work anymore. And you're kind of throwing up your hands because those experiences aren't the same anymore. And it needs to change. Do you understand how powerful this is for this unique fall equinox? In this fall equinox, you're shifting and you're not having the same thought patterns. You're shifting those beliefs as they come up by creating an awareness point, taking a deep breath and saying, wow, I can see how I did that in my past relationship and I'm expecting it to make me happy now. They're not the same person as my ex. This isn't the same job as the job with the terrible boss, or this isn't the same, I'm even doing that with my kids. Like I would expect things to be the same with when they were like 7 years old or something. Well, they're not. They're shifting too. So that means I have to shift and be aware as a parent. It's happening in conscious parenting potentials. And so this is the theme for the equinox, for the fall equinox. Okay. All right. Oregon, I know that you think that I'm going into world predictions now, that it's a time of the year where you wouldn't get anything. But these predictions are for the rest of September all the way through mid-October. That's how we typically do them. when I bring the council through for world predictions, we do them about 2 weeks at a time. So this is the end of the month all the way through the mid-month of October. Oregon, you have a problem with fire again. Coming up the first week of October, towards the end of the week, actually a little bit later than that, 10, 11 is the numbers I'm getting now. Notice how time shifts. Last week it was the end of the week. This week it's 10, 11. For October, you have a fire coming. It is not good. And when they tell you to get out, don't duck and cover like you typically do. Just get out while you can when they tell you to leave. Because it's one of the things I saw is that people won't do that, and there will be deaths because people didn't leave. Did you learn from 2 years ago? I hope so. All right, Brazil. We have an earthquake issue. I'm going to pull some karmic effect cards on it. I'm getting the numbers 10, 2, 3. That could be anywhere the second or third week of October. If I'm wrong on that energy pattern, it could be October the 2nd. I always like to admit that time is always shifting. The prediction itself will be accurate, but the timing could shift a little bit. Okay. I'm going to pull some karmic effects on that earthquake, what's going on, why it's happening. So in the past, everything was so effortless for Brazil in terms of the energy of the earth and your connection, but you need to emerge. And sometimes when you get volcano-related earthquakes and earthquakes underwater, it pulls you back to your old ways, like your old cultures that seem to be forgotten right now. It pulls you back to that innocence. All right. Israel, there's a political problem that is differing than the last 20 years. There's an interesting thing that I got a vision just yesterday about this with the death of a young woman, a Palestinian woman. And it makes the news all around the world in terms of the government's finally saying we need to change something in how we treat women. And it's like the male, the council is saying the toxic patriarchy going on there that can still be a problem. And it also brings in some Jewish culture, some ancient Jewish culture in Orthodox terms, and people start looking at some pain with women in the Jewish or Orthodox culture. So there's two things going on in 1 month with them, like one behind the other. Let me look at the karmic effect of that and see what it is we're learning from that. So Israel's been receiving the potential for spiritual activation for a long time, and you don't receive it. Remember, when you get upside down cards and oracle readings, it's not being received. But now it's like when you get the iceberg card upside down, the submerged painful culture comes up and you can see it for what it is. You didn't receive the activation from it, but you're looking at it. It's a first step. It's sad, that people die and they come and they die, but then people remember. They remember these names of these beautiful women and these activists who come in with these contracts to help us see what needs to change, right? Solar eclipse in October. Question: significance of the solar eclipse in October and across that particular place in the U.S. That's a coming together, a reestablishing of indigenous valuation systems that have been long forgotten, is what the council is saying. Let me look up the theme of that solar eclipse in October. What are we learning from that? Oh, good. Good. So it's like, I know it has to do, the first thing we get is the people in those indigenous lands where the solar eclipse coming up in October, they have not had a new beginning for remembering their ancient songs and their ancestral ways and their cultures, and actually having that brought into what are you guys saying, like legal power and legal rights and equanimity. and giving back of land, they're saying. I'm hearing something about giving back of land that formerly belonged to you. And it's like representing the songs of the land, the indigenous songs where that land being affected by the solar eclipse next month, the people of the land have almost forgotten the way that they'd like to educate their children through their ancient songs and ancient culture. But you're getting that back. That your new beginning that's been taken from you is coming back to you. All right. And an acknowledgement of the fact that you need your indigenous songs back in your school systems, the council's saying. You need your indigenous cultures and the way that you want to educate your system brought back as legal for you. Does that make sense for people in that area? I'm hoping it does. We'll see come October about this prediction and how it pans out. Let's see. Next question from Candace. Africa is regaining her sovereignty. Yes, she is, the council says. So we're glad you bring that up. Any predictions about what Africa as a continent is teaching the world at large and what needs to shift in the motherland? I'm South African. Yeah, you know what? Let's go ahead and let's pull just for this, for the sake of it, let's pull from a different deck, different oracle deck on that one in regards to your question and what needs to shift. We're going to look at both dharmic effect and karmic effect for September through mid-October in South Africa. Oh boy. Okay, so apparently you're still not ready. When you get oracle cards upside down, I'm teaching how to read these things. It means you didn't do the thing. Transformation being the thing. You didn't look deeply at that. So what you need to do is gather your strength in Africa, take a rest for a while, return to nature. It's like you're trying to move too fast is what I'm hearing. And right now we need the original ancestral strength to be brought back during deep peace and periods of peace and rest. And you won't let something rest right now in terms of your equanimity and rights. You're fighting too hard. We know you're strong, but sit back and take care of your families for a bit. Take a breather, take a relaxation moment. Right. There is an interesting disclosure coming up in South African government and North African government in terms of American intervention with weapons. And it's not a positive intervention, as you could possibly surmise. So it's brought about in local politics. People are talking about it. And Joe Biden's part in it. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to make this political. I didn't vote for him or the other one. Don't care. I'm not liberal. I'm not Democrat. I'm not Republican. I am not any of those parties. I vote for who's best, and it was neither of those two. But our current president was involved in, again, and it's not, I know, like it's no big surprise that any of our presidents will be involved in giving really illegal weapons to people that would hurt others in Africa. But it's brought about in a very public display for him. This is not good for his campaign. Just saying, that is the vision I saw. It's terrible. He was looking like this. I got this image of him going, this is not good for my campaign. So he needs to be aware. And he needs to not do that. But he just does what he's told anyway. Let's see. News about unions in general in the U.S., for example, Unite Auto Workers. We can look into the United Auto Workers Union if you want. And we'll pull from an oracle card that's dragon related this month. Anya actually picked this deck out, and I love it so much. And I stole it from her, and she hasn't got to play with it since then. So sorry, babe. I took your deck, and now if you want it, you have to reclaim it. Let's look at, I love dragons. I really do. Very real energies for me. United Auto Workers Union. What's the karmic effect and dharmic learnings as well? Okay, and Avalon is a city that went under. So then when we get the Avalon Dragon card, that's like that's not good for the union, but at least there's a deep revelation of how they aren't protecting their workers in the way that they could. Okay, we need to tap back into those original gifts that allow that union to protect their workers. But in this particular time frame that you're looking at for the end of September through mid-October, there's a lot of deep revelations about the falling of that union or the backing up of that union in terms of protecting their workers. There's not enough protection. So this isn't great. Sorry for that union. What positive disclosures will people embrace? Let's use the Dragon deck again to ask the council what they're seeing for positive disclosure during the time frame throughout the course of September to mid-October. What positive disclosures will the world embrace? Let's talk about it. We're not there yet. We do get some revelations of our power coming up in this time frame. In relation to the visions that I'm getting is another riot in France that pulls for some strength and union between France and Scotland. That's an unusual union. Just saying, I don't know anything about politics, but the Galactic Council said that's an unusual union. So there's a fiery union between Scotland and France over like a riot that breaks out from what would formerly be like a more peaceable protest that turned into a riot. And there's an unusual union that forms and revelations come about for how these countries can work together. Unfortunately, they're not ready, and the magic from it is lost. Upside down Merlin card in this one. Oh, France. They're more ready than most countries, but it's like that union needs to be reconsidered. Will there be any movement with environmental and pollution concerns? Give me a more specific, because I got a lot of predictions about pollution concerns with water. So you guys can ask about that, but if you want. But the first thing that I got at the very beginning of September was a dream about a disclosure of who polluted some water coming up in a major river and they run together. And I got that it was the Mississippi was involved in this, as well as like running through the Tennessee. So where those rivers kind of converge and meet, it causes problems for both. And then another disclosure about pollution in the Colorado River in the Western Slopes. It was real easy for me to recognize this prediction because I used to live there and I just moved from there. So I was like, oh, crap. Okay, but that needs to happen because I lived there and I could sense pollution in the water and coming down from a more northern source and affecting the Western Slopes in a bad way. And they're taking from that water, right? So that came through as disclosures about those two instances for September, October. Oh, that's a commonality. Jamin just says Scots and French hate Brits. I don't know if that's true overall. I don't look into that kind of stuff, but it's this interesting predictions for Britain is why I'm reading your comment aloud. Now, those two don't make an appropriate union in regards to what's going on in Britain. But, you know, when that happened a long time ago, was it 2020 or 2021 when it came out, the currency issues came out there. And people were saying we don't want to be a part of the European Union and everything up with that. I knew that was going to be bad news. I knew that the UK, like, you didn't need to make that change. It was going to be bad for you. And it's now affecting things terribly, right? So there is a potential. The reason why I'm bringing that up is because there is a potential for reconsidering that. And I know it's like what's done is done. What's done is done. You can't back up from it fully because you made your choices. But the beginning talks of shifting from that choice and making a change so that you're no longer so terribly affected. The beginning of that healing is happening in October. Some beginning governmental talks by your prime minister there. Southern California, yeah, I did get something for you, and it was water related in one portion, in Northern California, earthquake related for September, October. Any comments about weather engineering? No. No, because here's what the council says about that. Can you hold this that things can be true and untrue at the same time? The reason why they're saying this is because we've gone into the middle grounds of understanding that some people are affected by weather engineering and some people think it's absolutely ridiculous, but they're still affected by natural weather phenomena. And then people are fighting over whether it's natural or unnatural. It is about 50-50 at this point. So focusing on things you can't change, like weather engineering, unless you are a political party right now and you are a lobbyist to change this and you can go into Congress and you have that effect, how on earth is that going to work? That we can actually change these weather phenomena that are governmentally engineered in those programs? How can that? Can anyone tell me? Smarten me up, because the council talks to me about this and they're like focusing on things that you cannot individually change. No, you can't. You can visualize it, but that's crap. What are you going to do? What's actually going to happen by your visual? Because you guys have been visualizing the change for 25 years. The Homestead Project has been in effect with geomagnetic weather shields and things since 2000, what, 9? When NASA started that. Unity consciousness, great, but it's not happening yet. And you'll be dead and those problems will still be here. Why? Because we have an individual ascension program going on as well, where people still want to feel as if they are affected by some invisible force. Who says? The council in this case, right? The council in this case is who is saying. But people still believe that they want to be. You're saying actually that you still want to be affected, not you personally, Cynthia, but humans are saying that they still want to be in disempowerment. And ascension is a numbers game. So hear me out. Don't get mad. Ascension is a numbers game. So what happens is you come in and there, it doesn't matter that one person in your reality that you're not affected. That could be true for you, that's your reality. But there are still billions of people, and because ascension is a numbers game and billions of people are choosing that they want to blame the government for everything, those false weather geomagnetic shield engineering programs are still in effect, and that is their reality that you cannot change because you cannot change another person's free agency. So you will still see it. And this is kind of how ascension works, is that you'll still see a lot of people choosing pain and it won't make any sense for you. It may not be your reality, but yes, this is a bifurcation of timelines. In a sense, you can shift out of that timeline for yourself, but then there are billions of people that haven't, because they're still primarily focused on greed and pain, and somebody else is doing something to me, and they're learning from that slowly. And it may take another 175,000 years of an ascension cycle. Unfortunately, we may all be dead, and Earth will still be doing that. Why? Because Earth is a choice. Right? So we can't change that overall reality for those people. We can only change our individual timeline and the timeline that is collectively aligned to our soul families. So you can change that for hundreds of thousands of millions of people if those people are also doing that simultaneously. And then your timelines individually and collectively shift. But we still have billions of people who want to be affected by playing victim. Do you see? It's like yes and no at the same time. Do you understand what I mean? And some people can't hold that because they think that they are powerful enough to affect billions of people. And I don't think that's you, Cynthia. I'm not saying that, but there are some people that firmly believe that they can change, one person or 100 people can change a billion people timeline. It may not be your timeline, but you can't say to all those other billions of people, hey, you don't get to grow how you want to grow. They want to grow that way. And we can't possibly understand that because it's not very intelligent. I'm not trying to insult billions of people who want to suffer, but it's just not very intelligent to choose to suffer. But we can't stop them from wanting to cosmically evolve in that unique way. That's their free agency. We can't take that from them. That's why we can't change it. It's not that we're not powerful enough, it's that they choose it, and our free will choice isn't more powerful than theirs. Do you see what I mean? Gosh, my lips are so dry. I'm going to do that real quick. That's better. Oh yeah. Someone in chat said you can see every timeline happening like items in a shop window, but you don't have to buy the stuff you don't want. There's a yes and a no on that one, Council says. Here's the yes. You can choose that. That's your free agency. Here's the no. Because you are multidimensional beings and you believe that the subconscious levels of your psyche are equally important to the soul and the spirit, you kind of split yourself in these fractals of divinity, these little parts of the whole, like wheels and cogs that spin inside. You're like of a big cosmic machine. So there's a part of you that's saying, I don't choose that. And then the rest of you, if the rest of you, the subconscious is saying, but I still do because I want to learn, despite the fact that the conscious level doesn't want that pain anymore. If the subconscious level is still operating on pain as a primary force, that will still happen. So it's like a yes and a no. You've made the first step by consciously choosing it, but are you looking at the rest of you that's still choosing it somehow in your thought streams, in your vocabulary, in what you speak, say, and do? Is that aligning with what you think? Because if you're just thinking it and saying, I'm choosing this, so I'm creating a little affirmation for the day, that's a first step. But then your thought streams have to shift into that so that your words follow and your actions follow in order to have that karmic effect. Do you see what the council is saying there? Okay. India, someone's asking about India. You have a reinstatement of something that helps your farmers, so your farming season is better next year. And that reinstatement of the law that protects those farmers happens next month. So let's look at that in terms of karmic and dharmic effect. They did not make whoever would protect those farmers did not make the right decisions. They didn't have the appropriate protection. But then universal law came in effect because India is huge and billions of people want that to change, right? So this takes time. You see the dragon holding that going. You're going to go into a silence over this. It's going to be considered in your governments, and then law is going to change. But right now, it's kind of a silent period. And then next year it begins to change. So I'm thankful that the beginning of that change happens next month. Yeah. Oh, I don't know why other people do. When you guys do this to me, you put me on the spot. She says, why does Dr. Stephen Greer refuse my sound frequency healing? I don't know, because I'm not him, but I can say for me, I get like a lot of requests, like hundreds of emails a day of requests for collaboration. And I don't do well with collaboration because I'm kind of one-tracked in terms of what the council speaks to me. And I'm a little bit ADHD, so I get off track and get all busy and wrapped up in other people's stuff. And then I can't stay kind of, this is just me speaking as a channel and a teacher and a speaker. He could be going, well, I'm trying to write a book right now. I'm trying to stay on my own track, right? Collaborations were like a 2020 theme, but what I'm seeing particularly in our field right now is that people are focusing on like getting out their whole purpose, and it takes like a deep focus on just what they individually have to offer. And they're doing that very well versus collaborations right now. Okay, Ireland, I did see something for you. Let me get back into it. I feel to pull from a different deck on this one. Let's go back to the Earth Oracle deck, Earth Magic deck, rather. There's some heavy rains coming up. It's that time of the year. Okay. Central Ireland flooding down the major river right outside of where President Kennedy was born. What is that? Ross Lair, I think. I've only driven through that area maybe once when I visited. Let's see a little bit about that flood there. What's going on? in terms of dharma and karma and why that's happening, it floods out an entire cropland there, and you don't have a great harvest. So it's like the anti-blessing card comes up. You don't get a good harvest because of it. You have to make some changes in your current irrigation systems that your farming allows, and you do make those changes when you get that card. It's really, really good, but it kind of dims out your fire. And just you start looking at, will it happen again? And you're a little afraid, but it is a major flood. So that's not very good for the Ross Layer area. Canada, it's another damn fire. Luckily, like, it's scary because this time I feel to go back for the dragon deck on this one, but the council is saying with this one for October, it's like a whole apartment or condominium complex, and people think that it won't stop because it goes into a neighboring subdivision, which is on kind of the tail end of a real deep, like, state park or provincial area there. And it's you think that you can control it by the time it gets there, and you're scared that it won't. But then it only taps into the very beginning of that state forest there. And the waters, it's this big river that's kind of at the edge of that park. And that's where they start kind of digging trenches, and they're afraid that it's going to skip the river, and then it doesn't. And it's saved. It's saved. It doesn't continue like the last wildfire there. But it starts in a subdivision that is more of like a condominium or apartment subdivision type place, and then it goes into a housing subdivision, and then they're worried that that it's going to skip over a river and go into a forest, and it does, but then a trench catches it on the other side. Let me see what's going on. So deep wisdom about how to stop your fires. You're tapping into that, and you're following the airflow is really good. So there's going to be a change in wind that people are very, very afraid of. But the air goes in your direction this time, and then it stops before it reaches that national forest. Okay, I'm going to take one more. Gulf Coast weather for Louisiana and around the Gulf of Mexico is really bad this hurricane season. Lake Charles, you need to go inland. It's coming straight at you. This reminds me a little bit of, like, I think it was Hurricane Rita. I lived there during that time in that area. So it's like more Harvey style flooding versus major winds. So Lake Charles needs to go inland specifically. And then it goes into another one comes in for a tropical storm for Alabama, and everybody on the coast there needs to go further inland as well. Everybody, like, that's big. It's a big storm for this year, but it's my dreams on that don't predict fruition until November. So we will kind of look at that again in November, Alabama, and see if that still rings true. All right. Okay, don't forget, I got to go for now, but please don't forget about your discounts for the, I think, 21% off that you get when you join my Patreon community. You get a discount off of a reading, called the Ask Me Anything or Ask Me a Question reading, I think is what we decided to call it. So that's on my website. And if you want a discount, it'll be there. It'll be there when you are a Patreon member. So Patreon is just a place where I do all my channelings when I'm not here. And there are plenty of them going back all the way through 2017. I have hundreds of classes, channelings, Q&As, sound healings, and behind the scenes stuff as well. Where I get that sweater, I don't remember. My wife got it for me. It's so cozy though. Maybe I got it at Meyer. You'd have to ask her. I don't know. Texas seems okay. I didn't get anything for Texas. For September, October, I didn't get anything weather-wise, at least. What else was I going to say? Yeah, I'm sorry I haven't been here as much. I fell during my ice skating training. It went straight back on my head. I was out for a bit, and then somebody in my family got really sick. So we're still kind of I can't promise you that I'm back for good on a regular basis, like, because family is priority, and I'm still just like really observing them. So we'll see how it goes. But I am on Patreon twice a week at the minimum, sometimes more. Just depends. And when you guys want that discount, let me know. When you just message us from your Patreon account, you'll get that 21% discount for that reading. Okay. Thanks for having me back, and thanks for your subscribing. I appreciate your subscribing to the channel. If you like this work, and if you want more things, your likes, shares, and subscribing is what keeps me going here. So I will see you soon. I'll check back in probably for a solar eclipse update, because it's a very powerful one. So you'll see me checking back in for the solar eclipse energies coming up in October, and you'll see more world prediction updates coming up for October as well, probably around the first week of the month. I'll see you. Have a good one. Bye.